The previous basket is under review.
Welcome back to Stats by Will and Jim, a college basketball podcast that focuses on the numbers. We are proudly a part of Basket Under Review, the very best college basketball community going. I'm your host, Jim Root, joined once again by Will Warren after a week hiatus. We had a tag-in cameo from Isaac Trotter. I think the people loved that. Isaac gave a pretty sweet angle on Michigan's second half dominance, and lo and behold, the two games after that, they won the second half by like 50 combined. So, hey, smart people talking smart things. Will, do you feel like you have something to live up to after that?
Yeah, well, I made it 47 minutes in on my flight before I fell asleep. It wasn't the fault of either of you. I was just very tired. And there's like, you know how people, the podcast Effectively Wild, the baseball show?
I've heard of it. Yes. I don't think I've ever listened.
Okay. I know at least one guy who that's like his sleep thing. He puts that on and he said it's like no offense to them at all. It's just like they both have very calm talking voices. And so like yours and Isaac's are both like pretty calm, level-headed voices. And so it was a nice little, but I woke back up in time. I finished out the episode. Don't worry.
Perfect. I mean, I'll take that. One of my favorite movie podcasts. I will listen to old episodes to fall asleep sometimes. So I get that. Sometimes it's just about the soothing nature of things.
Yes.
Okay. As I mentioned, Basket Under Review, only $10 a month gets you access to all kinds of written content from some of the best writers on the sport. That does include Will. We've got Brian Ralph's Ralph Report, Jordan Majeski's game write-ups. Everybody's contributing to the weekend watch list. Just if you haven't checked that out, I think it's the best thing that comes out of Basket Under Review, led by Will, but then I participate, a couple others participate. It comes out in Saturday morning. You get to see all kinds of the big games before the weekend kicks off. We've also got the Burp, Basket Under Review pod with Eamon Bredden and Tate Frazier. So make sure to check that out as well. We've got our normal episode, a little bit of a 7-stat rotation going back and forth about things we've noticed over the past week or just standout numbers from the season. But first, got to get to our stat of the day. This one is not scientific. It is something that inspired by something that surprised me that I found out yesterday, and we'll see if you can figure out what it is. The question for you, Will, is how many teams have been ranked number 1 in the AP poll this year? And can you name those teams? I will not tell you how many. I will just see if you're able to decode or figure out it's not really a pattern, but it's just somewhat surprising to me.
Okay, Michigan and Arizona for sure.
Confirmed. Michigan. This is Michigan's first time being ranked number 1 this week. That was what was surprising to me.
That is pretty weird.
Yeah.
Purdue started number 1.
Correct. So we're up to 3.
Okay, I'm trying to remember. Jesus. Duke, I think, got to number 1 at one point.
Here's the fun fact. Duke has not been 1 or 2 this year.
Okay, so they must have been 3 when they lost to Texas Tech.
Yep, and I think it's pretty well accepted after Houston's loss last night that Duke will be number 1 if they beat Michigan on Saturday. So we could have another number 1.
That'd be a fine bump.
Yep. There is one more team that snuck 1 week in at number 1. It was early in the season. That's my hint.
So this team must have lost.
I might have just said them.
Well, it's not Houston, was it?
Houston had 1 week at number 1.
Was it before Players era?
Yes, they piggybacked off Purdue. I forget who Purdue lost to early, and were able to hop up to number 1. I'm checking
Purdue
real quick.
Lost to, or did Purdue?
Or
No, did people drop Purdue because of the Oakland deal?
That's exactly it. I think Houston jumped them without Purdue losing. So even though Houston also played Oakland, and Houston didn't play Towson very tough or Lehigh very tough, but I think there was just a race to drop Purdue. Yeah.
I was trying to remember. I did not remember Houston being number 1 when Tennessee beat them.
Yeah, they must not have been for that. Maybe they got.
I think there were 2 or 3.
They got re-leaped by. I had the grid up. Yeah. Okay. So Houston was number 1 in week 2 as 11-10, and then Purdue jumped back to number 1. It was a brief cameo. I was also just looking for fun at week 6, the AP poll, the illustrious week 6 AP poll, and teams number 8 through 12 are Gonzaga, Michigan State, BYU, Louisville, Alabama. Teams 13 through 19 are Illinois, UNC, Vandy, Texas Tech, Arkansas, Florida, Kansas. I would absolutely take 13 through 19 over 8 through 12 to win the title, but that's just the week 6 AP poll.
That will be a fun prompt. Who is number 7?
Houston, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. Let's still keep them. The question would then be, what group wins more games, 7 through 12 or 13 through 19 in the NCAA tournament?
That would be really good. And I guess 13 through 19 might be one extra team there. You get Purdue.
Yeah, but we'll give them that because it's 7 through 12 would theoretically be a better group.
Yep. Yeah. And with the Saunders injury and Gonzaga's and Michigan State's current track, I would take 13 through 19, I think. One other little fun fact on the AP poll, only 2 other teams have ranked as high as number 2. That would be UConn and Iowa State. Kind of just the fact there is that Duke hasn't gotten there yet, but I have a feeling they will be number 1 if they knock off Michigan, like I said. All right, that's the stat of the day. Now we want to give a shout out to Home Field, our sponsor here, Home Field Apparel. Will is repping a beautiful Home Field tee right now. It is the best place to get your college sports apparel, and buy now to get it before March Madness. Make sure you get your purchases in there. You can check out their new releases. They've got these coaching jackets and shooting shirts that are just dynamite retro looks. I'm pretty sure if you buy the Providence coaching jacket, you get the Providence coaching job. So if you want to go for that, highly recommend it. You will be the diehard of all diehards if you're wearing this
You
stuff.
might be playing for Providence this week if you buy the jacket.
Yeah, the shooting shirt, you're going to be out there. They've got all kinds of unique logos, retro ones, some throwbacks, big schools, small schools, whoever it is you want to support. It's pretty much all up there. T-shirts, hoodies, sweaters, hats, joggers, whatever you're looking for. Homefieldapparel.com. Promo code Burner15 for 15% off your first purchase. That's promo code Burner15 at homefieldapparel.com. Wear one for the team. All right, now we go to our 7-stat rotation. It was an adventurous week of college hoops, but Will, as you noted, not an upset-filled weekend of college basketball. So we'll see what directions we went in with our numbers here. I will, as always, let you lead off and take it whatever direction you want to.
Do you think anybody called Iowa State over Houston an upset last night? I feel like there's got to be one person.
Surely someone on ESPN, not Scott Van Pelt, and I think Fran's wise to that now too. But I'm sure somebody did.
Oh man, I can't. I don't know. Somebody surely did. But the point being, normally when a team wins that game, we would focus on the winner, right? Because they won the game, and there's a little bit of officiating controversy, I would say, within Houston, Iowa State surrounding a kicked ball or lack thereof. But I don't want to focus on that. And it's a great win for Iowa State, of course, but they were projected to win. I want to focus on one player for Houston. That is Kingston Flemings. The number here, 25.3. That is his points per game against top 25 competition per Bart Torvik, adjusted for venue, of course. This is number 1 in the entire sport.
Whew.
That beats Cam Boozer. That beats every other player out there. Number 1 in the sport in points per game against top 25 competition. It's just so funny looking at it. A 131 offensive rating on 32% usage, which is insane. 58% from 2, 43% from 3. By the way, adds 4.7 assists per game, 4.2 rebounds per game. Kind of bonkers to me that he is not like a consensus top 6 guy yet. It seems like there's some people who are still, wiggling their way there eventually. But Flemings, man, he's the only way that Houston could have survived this year, where Uzan has been okay. I would not say that Uzan's been bad by any stretch, but he's clearly a level down from last year. This is one of the top 5 players in college basketball. And, I think, like Isaac Trotter said, and like others have said before, Houston has the best backcourt in the sport this year. I thought we saw that last night with how they, just kind of shot Houston into that game and a little bit out of that game, we'll say. But I'm really impressed by Flemings, really impressed by Houston's upside. As usual, they're unbelievable from a shot volume perspective, so they're going to have a super high floor in whatever game they play. I do generally hate focusing on the loser of a big game because that's a little too much of a contrarian standpoint. But I find it hard to not make the big takeaway from last night's game. Well, 2 nights ago, as you're hearing this, the Fleming show, because he is taking Houston's offense to a level they haven't seen before.
I thought you were going to pull the Russillo. I'm more impressed by
I was more
last
impressed
night.
with games Houston didn't win.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. No, Fleming's is incredible.
No, I'm pulling the Russillo by making 2 really good points.
Yeah, perfect. There it is. I was texting with a buddy last night, and he's like, "I love that this Flemings guy seems like he plays his best in big games." And now after we get off the air, I'm gonna text him that stat that he's the leading scorer in top 25 venue adjusted scoring. And it's not like Houston's playing fast, like their last night was a 58 possession game, and he's still racking up 22 points. 4 assists. Now he had 3 turnovers, but man, last night was such a clean game. I keep saying last night. People are listening on Monday. Monday night's game was a clean game. Houston had 7 turnovers against one of the best turnover forcing teams in the country, but Iowa State had 3. Program record, did not cough the ball up against Houston's incredible athleticism, their pressure. Now, as you mentioned, there was that kick that immediately led to an Iowa State 3, like basically off the inbound, and that felt like a rather big, significant momentum turn. I think it went from an 8-point game to a 5-point game. Could have been 8-point steal leads to a basket back up to 10. But Iowa State made the plays they need to. That Nate Heisey 3 in the corner that he barely caught, and somehow it reminded me of Pat Connaughton, a former Milwaukee Buck legend, just like catching it, not bringing it down, and being able to fire it from the corner. Major shot there. They're starting to get real contributions from Bateman. He's giving them big scoring boosts as well. Interesting, Will, that Milan Momcilovic was kind of benched down the stretch. I was surprised by that. But to bring it back to Houston, Sharp was in foul trouble. That kind of hurt, especially like for probably 10 minutes in the second half. It was big time the Fleming show. And in that time, they built up a 10-point lead. Now, late, they weren't able to hang on to it. But I'm with you. I think he is like, I don't think it'd be crazy if somebody drafted him in the top 3. Like if you decided specific team liked him more than one of the top 3, it wouldn't be nuts. Fran was talking last night. He's like, Steph Curry went 6. Sometimes the best player doesn't go 1, 2, 3. Like, I wouldn't be shocked because Flemings, I think, still has even some more physical maturation to go through, and yet he's already this dominant.
Yeah, and crazy that his points per game actually dropped last night in these big games because he only scored 22. My other Houston takeaway, they should be playing Mercy Miller more. I'd like to see him.
Heck of a highlight. Heck of a highlight he gave us last night.
But he seems to be coming around on both ends of the court, and I'm sure there's something I'm not seeing that drives Kelvin nuts, and that's why he's only playing him 8 minutes in these bigger games. But it would have been nice to see him, get up to like 12, 13, 14, somewhere in there minutes per game last night. So I feel like that's a guy, and there's one every March, where on these big teams, maybe Houston's struggling in a Sweet 16 or Elite 8 game or something, and they get a key bench contribution.
Yep.
I wouldn't shock me if it was him.
Yeah, I wouldn't have minded seeing him get a couple of the second half Harwell minutes where they were like filling that Sharp void, and Harwell was out there. And I think Mercy Miller could have taken a chance there. All right, I'm going to stay in the Big 12 with my first thought. Another big game from this past weekend, and I'm going to focus on, well, the 2 numbers are number 6 and number 7. And those are Donovan Atwell's ranks in 3-pointers made in the country. He's 6th nationally with 90 made, and he's 7th in offensive rating, 140.7 per KenPom. He is just lethally efficient. And obviously the story with Texas Tech is Christian Anderson and JT Toppin. Reading through CJ Moore's great top 25 column about the weekend, or just the teams that were, and Texas Tech, 50 points came from Toppin and Anderson. Anderson is leading the country and leading the last 20 years in points generated out of the pick and roll. So like, can't discount how incredible he's been. But Atwell's become like maybe the best 3-and-D, a true 3-and-D archetype in the country. He guards the other team's best player every night. He was really good against Darren Peterson in the game that Anderson sat out. Now, Peterson hit 2 big shots late, but really shut him down for most of it. I thought he was just going to be a shooter when he came, and he's given them more on the defensive end. He had a huge block late against Arizona, and obviously he's hit some big shots late in games too. I think his contributions have been huge for that team beyond just those 2 All-Americans. And I wanted to give a tip of the cap to him with Texas Tech getting that big win at Arizona.
You're really appealing to our Zoomer audience with referencing 6 and 7. No, Texas Tech was actually my number
God, it
2,
didn't even
so I don't
occur to
mind.
me. I'm so lame.
That's how washed we are. You didn't even occur to you. Texas Tech was my number 2 on this because I'm stretching the definition here because obviously Bam Goy sat out for a little bit. They've had some like on and off stuff. Anderson sitting out the Kansas game, for example. But I'm going to say that they achieved more or less full health at the LSU game. That's when they adopted their current rotation. That's when it kind of seems like everybody more or less has been together since then. At Torvik, Texas Tech is number 9 since that date. Top 5 offense, top 20 defense. Atwell is a huge part of that. I'm just really, I keep seeing people do the whole, and it's so annoying when they do this. The thing of like, oh, Ken Palm doesn't know what he's talking about, when they see Texas Tech 16th below Louisville or whatever. And it's like, okay, maybe, but Texas Tech also had the first month of the season where they kind of played like barely a top 50 team at all. So that's still factored in the data. Like, we're not going to discount that entirely, but we can say that since they got to what we will consider full health, they have played like a top 10 team. They have played like a national title contender, and they're shooting the shit out of it.
Yeah. I mean, you look at, like you're mentioning, when they shifted the lineup, I mean, that's kind of when Jalen Petty rose up more into the starting lineup. They started playing Atwell even more. Like, he was a role player, like starting, but playing 20 to 25 minutes in some games. Now that guy's like 40 every single night, 37. He's up there with Anderson and Toppin. They have figured out what the best version of themselves is, and it's the exact same trajectory that they rode last year. They were free throws from the Final Four last year, and they lost to St. Joe's in the non-con. They lost at home to UCF before the calendar turned to 2025, and lo and behold, they were great by the end of the year, and it looks like that's what they're doing. I mean, it's been documented, but Duke on a neutral, Arizona on the road, and Houston at home is a ridiculous 3-pack of wins atop their resume. So I
They
think,
and Florida, those two teams kind of seem like this year's test case of don't lose your mind over November results.
yeah, I think that's a great example. And I think, despite being ranked 16th in Ken Palm, that's a true national title contender. And we'll see. We'll see if they can get there in March. All right. Well, so to you for number 2, if you had another Texas Tech number, or if you had something else.
Well, I just want to explore that offensive piece a little more. So I don't think, for example, since that date, they're like either +9 or +10 from the 3-point line in percentage. I don't know that that's going to hold. Like, they're probably not that elite. But that being said, like, they do produce great threes, extremely high quality ones, extremely high quality twos as well. I am really interested to see what type of matchups they get in March because, for all the good they do, they don't really get to the free throw line much. And it's because of how small their bench is. Like, this is going to continue to decrease, by the way, 360th in bench minutes this year. And that's counting the first month of the year when they had to play some really weird lineups. So the true number there is probably like they might be giving about 12 to 14% of all minutes to the bench, which is crazy low. We dropped a reference to this team the last time I was on here, Evan Turner, Ohio State era numbers. I'm really interested to see what happens if, God forbid, they get into foul trouble in like a Sweet 16 game or an Elite 8 game or whatever. And like what type of team they end up drawing in March. Like, if they draw a team with a really good backcourt, what's that going to look like? And it's obviously like this year's not short on good guard play whatsoever across the sport. But that being said, like, this team is clearly different than they were in November. I think this is the rare case where, and I have made fun of this privately and publicly, people contorting numbers from like their date of choice. I love.
Oh, we do. We love to do that here. Yeah.
But like since Feast Week, I think now when you do that, that's 2.5 months of data. That's not nothing. That's at least like something. When I see people do the thing, and I'm trying not to call this person out, where they're like, over the last 2 or 3 weeks, this team is top whatever in the sport. Okay, congratulate. Like, who gives a shit? It's 2 weeks of data. Like, The only 2 weeks I'm listening to is Grizzly Bears 2 weeks, okay? That's the only one I wanna hear. 2.5 months, that's a little different at least. And, like, that carries with it the context of Texas Tech having all the injuries starting in the preseason, having to figure out the rotation kind of on the fly. So that, like, I will read more into that than I would, like a smaller data set. Like, I do legitimately believe Texas Tech is a low end top 10 team in the country.
Yeah, I think that's entirely reasonable as well. And they're hopefully going to get more from Bam Goy. He fouled out in 13 minutes against Arizona's front line. I can't like completely make fun of him for that. But one last Texas Tech number. This probably won't surprise anybody given their minutes, but Anderson and Toppin lead the country in hookups. That's a CBB analytics number. They have Anderson has assisted Toppin for 152 points this year. Nobody else is even at 135. So they are easily tops in the country in that. And Anderson missed a big game. I think Toppin missed a couple early in the season too. Doesn't matter. The team's still outstanding. Great combo top there. All right, that's enough Red Raider love.
I'd consider renaming that stat.
No, I love hookups. I think it's great. I think
so did Sharon Moore. I don't think we might need to consider an alternate name.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's like the heated teammates instead of a heated rivalry. Okay. So you've given 2, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. My second one it's 2 numbers again. It's 99 and 91, and those are Wisconsin's percentile rankings in pick and roll and passes usage, 99th frequency, and 91st efficiency per synergy. It's just wild that Wisconsin has become this ball screen mastery offense. You think back 5 years ago when they're running swing, 10 years ago. I mean, I was talking to somebody about the Dick Bennett era when they scored like 52 points a game and made the Final Four in 2001. Or I think it was 2000. But now it's like a team that scores 90 points on a fairly consistent basis. They've got shooting bigs that open up the court. Boyd and Blackwell get into the lane at will. They've just picked up 3 of the best wins you can find in the Big Ten. They've won at Michigan. They've won at Illinois. They beat Michigan State at home. There is no more spacing statistic on shot quality. It appears dead. I looked and there's no data within it, but I would have to imagine Wisconsin ranks very highly, and Boyd has been a huge part of that. He's like kind of borderline All-American at this point.
Yeah. So we are an incredible streak here where Wisconsin was my number 3 on my list. So I'll flow directly into it.
Perfect.
This is incredible for your flight. Wisconsin's ranking, and again, this is a 2.5 month data set, so read into it what you will. I'm not considering this as necessarily more important than the full season, but it does carry some real context with it. Since switching to a new starting lineup entering December, aka telling Austin Rapp to hit the bench, Wisconsin, number 21 at Torvik. I think that this team is legitimately quite a bit improved, quite a bit better, definitely more interesting, and it obviously helps if they had won just one of those games. So, like, let's just say, for example, they lost by 2 at Illinois instead of won by 2. It would not have really made a dent analytically. They would have been about, like, they might have dropped. So on KenPom, as we talk right now, they're 32nd. They might have dropped 33rd, maybe. And even then, like, 4-point swing in a season-long data set, I doubt it. But pounding Michigan State the way they did, wildly impressive. It certainly helps that in their 3 big wins, they've shot 44% combined from 3. They've hit 15 plus threes in all those games. But that is sort of the deal you make when you take over half your shots from 3. You have guys who can hit these at a high percentage. John Blackwell has really come on lately. I've loved watching him play. And, even Rapp off the bench continues to not be my favorite player I've ever watched in Big Ten history, but hits his threes at a decent clip. It's really hard to undersell a guy who's 6'10", shooting 33% from 3, and does block a decent number of shots, as well as is a very good passer for his size. Like, if that's your 6th man, that's a pretty good way to be living.
Yeah.
I like this team, but I do have a caution on them. I don't love that against top 150 competition, aka we'll just call these tournament levels or higher, because like top 150 is roughly 15 seed or above. Negative turnover margin, negative 2-point percentage margin How long can this style of a team last in March?
They feel like they're going to do the same thing as last year. Give us a super entertaining second round game, and unfortunately check out. Like that BYU game was fantastic, but yeah, I don't know if they have the sustainability over multiple weeks against top level competition. But we know they can have the standout top level performance. It's funny you're describing Rap 33% blocks a decent amount of shots. Like it's kind of their whole big man rotation. Winter's at 32%, Bieliauskas is at 31%. But like that's what their big men do. They knock down some threes. Rap hit a couple huge ones at Illinois, and they block a couple of shots. The guy who's like crazy blown my mind is Braden Carrington. He's a 41% 3-point shooter. He's pulling up off ball screens consistently. Never made more than 32% of his threes in a career 32% shooter, but they have somehow found him a great role. Former Minnesota guys crossed over that rivalry line. They are volatile because of how many threes they take. They don't force turnovers, so you're getting your shots up, but it's become an extremely fun style of basketball. And I know many Badger fans thought that was impossible as recently as a couple seasons ago.
They are a strong contender for the annual Buffalo Bills award of losing the game of the year when it comes to the NCAA tournament.
Yes.
I like whatever game they end up losing is going to probably be the single most fun game of the entire 67 or however many games there are.
91-89 against BYU last year. Both teams just scored like crazy. A lot of shot making. That seems like something that could happen again this year.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we hit your third number in that. Let's see if I can figure out your fourth number. This one isn't really a number. It's a date. January 24th. And that is the last time Michigan State won a regulation game. They're 2-3 over that span. OT win at Rutgers, OT win versus Illinois, who I will mention was down 2 starters. No Boswell, no Stojakovic. Now, Will just kind of railed against 2 to 3 week sample size on Bart Torvik, but I did look at what Michigan State ranks in that time. They're 75th in the country since January 25th. The things to note there, their rebounding's been a little less dominant in that span. 3-point defense isn't good, but defensively, Will, they're forcing a sub 10% turnover rate. It's 363rd in the country. That's over 5 games against Big Ten teams. The defense hasn't been nearly as elite because they don't force turnovers and they're not completely locking down the defensive glass in the same way. Like I think they're only 30th or so in that span. But I don't know, is Michigan State showing off real mortality, or is it just kind of a team that never had a great offense coming back to earth?
The MSU thing for me is that it was never going to be a great offense, but they, like last year they shot so poorly that they were due a little bit of positive regression. And they got that this year. I do think that they're still so unbelievable on the boards. Like, I mean, they're still in conference play, plus 16 per 100 in rebounding margin. That is insane. But that comes with the worst turnover percentage offensively in the league, like by some distance. They are minus 4.5 in turnover margin per 100 in Big Ten play. Now, Izzo teams have gotten away with that before. There was, I believe, doing a quick scan here, 2019, that team was minus 3.6 per 100. That was pretty extreme. So it's doable. You can still make it to the Final Four with that level of turnover margin, but you need some luck. And, they're going to need, to my eyes, like very specific games to be played. Like they will have to play games against teams now, and I'm willing to be wrong here, basically entirely through the front court. Like they will have to try and win entirely through the big guys. And you're gonna run into some matchups, especially with the guard play this year, where it would be great if Jeremy Fears can bail you out late in the clock over and over, but you need like a second and a third guy to step up, or pray that your opponent shoots 21% from 3 every night, which is not the most reliable way to do it. So with MSU, I don't know, it's hard to bet against Izzo, I'm aware, but it's not impossible for them to lose as a big favorite. We've seen it, in previous seasons where, 2018 lost to Syracuse when they we're just like, hey, what if we had Jaren Jackson Jr. on the bench the entire second half? Or to MTSU, or even in, people forget, in 2012 they were a 1 seed and I think got blown out in the Sweet 16 by Louisville, I believe.
Which year was that?
2012.
2012. Oh yeah, way back. Okay.
Yeah, I think they got blown out by Louisville.
They scored 44 points on 60 possessions. Yes.
We think that some of these guys are infallible, and in some cases, like, it does seem like they are, but they're not. Everybody loses eventually in March, and I could definitely see this Michigan State team being the type of 3 or 4 seed is what we're thinking.
Yeah, I think right around there. Yep.
Could definitely see that being the type of 3 or 4 seed that loses in the round of 32 simply because they just can't outscore the opponent from 3, because they do give up a lot of 3-point attempts.
Yep. If somebody's hot against them, I mean, they're bottom 15 in the country in 3-point attempt rate. Wisconsin knocked down 15 of 35, and that's the kind of game that can snowball against Michigan State. Especially that turnover margin stuff is worth noting. Like I talked about their sub 10 turnover rate forced on defense, and they're dead last in offense and coughing it up in league play. So they've got to figure that out, because I think this team needs to be a shot volume monster, and they are on the glass. They don't have the skilled shot making to not be a shot volume team, and the turnover stuff is something they've got to sort out for sure.
Well, what's funny, last word on them, is that they are built shot volume wise like a late 2000s team with like a crappy turnover margin, but just mauling people on the boards. I'm very interested to see how that works in 2026.
Yeah, it worked for a while, and obviously they're in a bit of a rut right now. It's hard to say any of their last 5 games are like outstanding efforts. Losing at Minnesota, barely beating Rutgers. They were down 20 to Michigan. I know they came back there, but beating Illinois, good. But Illinois was down 2 starters, and I took kind of crazy Jeremy.
Also, you were favored at home.
Yeah, should be winning that game. All right, that's it on Michigan State. Back to you, Will, for your number 4 stat.
Minus 101 and minus 94.
That's a lot of minuses.
Yeah, that could be weight for somebody. GLP-1s are pretty big these days. That would be pretty wild if they came out as like, what was that guy, Przemek Karnowski for Gonzaga?
Oh yeah,
big. What if he came back? He's like 7 feet and 195. It's like, I'm a stretch 5 now. This is Kansas's combined offensive rebound and turnover differential this season on the first stat, minus 101. And in the second, it is Q1 and Q2 games only. They are minus 94. The average game they are playing against top 100-ish competition, they're minus 6. I got some problems with this team, man. I don't want to, because I know everybody's gung-ho on Kansas because, what's funny, and I put this in the Discord, I enjoy watching them way more when Darren Peterson doesn't play. And it's no slight to Darren Peterson, who is a wonderful offensive basketball player. Kansas, he makes the rest of the Kansas roster appear scrappy in comparison. Like, watching the Arizona game, I was like, damn, this is a really fun team. Like, where's this been all along? And then they played Iowa State at the weekend. I was like, I'm not really enjoying the Kansas experience anymore. And again, I don't want to pin it on just one guy, but it does kind of feel that way a little bit. And I understand that there's going to be people, and there's good reasons for this, who will bet on teams that have like this massive upside, which they do have. They have Darren Peterson. Melvin Council can go ballistic at any one time. Flory Bajinga has been kind of underrated this whole season somehow. I thought he was amazing in the Arizona game. Almost single-handedly swung it their direction. But with all of that being said, I have a hard time loving a team that doesn't get offensive rebounds and doesn't force turnovers. I think you can do one or the other, but what's weird to be this reliant on two-way shot making, you almost play more like a 13 seed mid-major than you do the 3 or 4 seed high major that's expected to win that game. So what I'm explaining here is, if Kansas finds themselves in a game where, for example, let's just say perhaps a certain number one pick doesn't feel like he's going to play more than about 16 minutes. I don't think this is going to happen. But let's just say like Darren Peterson doesn't score more than 17 in this game. Do they have enough? Like, do they have enough elsewhere? Are you going to be able to get offensive rebounds against, they're not going to win the league this year, but like that level of 13 seed, a Samford from a couple of years ago? Like, if you draw Stephen F. Austin, for example, are you going to be in trouble because you can't get turnovers and you can't get offensive rebounds? And oh, by the way, you don't get to the line very well, which is shocking given the way Kansas plays. I don't know. I understand why people are going to pick this team. It's fine. But I would also caution by saying Kevin Durant lost in the round of 32. And it like SGA lost in the Sweet 16. It's not a given that by having one of the best prospects on your team, you are going to go deep in March. You got to have some answers that aren't the best prospect.
Yeah, they're like, it's cool that they are 4-1 against the other top Big 12 teams. Like, that's great. They have clearly shown that gear to be able to step up and play at that level. But they lost to UCF, lost to West Virginia. They didn't play a lot of like mid majors because Bill Self is just a scheduling fiend in the non-con.
Let's
and they
also
took
note
care of
really
Princeton.
quick, should have lost to TCU at home.
Yeah, very true. That I can't believe TCU choked that one away. That has almost like escaped my brain. But at times they out effort people because Melvin Council is a just madman. Like, he is always going at 100%. Badunga's all over the place. Trey White is kind of on that level too. They're not going to really be able to do that in the postseason. And they could be exposed to, like you said, some of that 3-point shot variance. They don't take a lot of threes. They give up a fair amount. It's partially because it's hard to score at the rim against Badunga and Tiller. So teams have to take jump shots, but that does leave them a little bit vulnerable to a hot shooting mid-major if they're able to get that. So I want to see what seed they end up getting. They're kind of in the 2-3 towing the line there right now. I'm not sure what 15 seed could beat them, but like the incremental skill of a 14 seed could be a little bit more risky for them. Then of course, second round, you get the 6 or the 11 as well too. I think there is some underlying concern with that shot volume stuff relative to how like high people are on them right now because of the top performances in the Big 12. But we'll see how that fares down the stretch. I mean, they've got at Oklahoma State, who desperately needs a win Wednesday night, and that is Bill Self's alma mater, and I think he's lost there a few times before. Cincinnati's playing a little better. Then you get Houston and Arizona, kind of recheck against the top level of that conference. There's still a lot more to find out about Kansas, and I think they do need to figure out some of that shot volume stuff. And when Peterson plays too, just to your point on watching them, everybody else stands around a little more, and there's a little bit of waiting for Darren to be Darren. And that's kind of why I think I like watching them more when he's not out there, because they're more balanced. Some of the role players play with more confidence because they know they have to shoot rather than just pass it to DP. So I think there's still questions about Kansas for sure.
I completely missed this note because we used it for Alabama 2 weeks ago. I'm ashamed I didn't bring it up. So Kansas, negative turnover and negative rebound margin per 100. The last team to make the Sweet 16 with both of those things was 2006, 2007 USC.
Oh, like, boy, that is a throwback.
Now, on one hand, they had a top. What did OJ Mayo get drafted that year? Like third, second?
I think third. Yeah,
the third. Yeah, because it was the Odin and Durant year. But I guess on one level that's encouraging. Maybe you really hope that in the round of 32 you were also matched up with a fellow top 3 pick.
Yeah, exactly. The head-to-head Durant versus Mayo that we got that year.
Yeah, but like I don't know. I'm not seeing it.
Okay, I like that. I think it's a good angle because there is such fervor for Kansas right now, and maybe there shouldn't be. All right, I'm going Big 12 again too here, and it is because a very unfortunate injury happened, but Richie Saunders out for the year with a torn ACL for BYU. Is per Hoop Explorer, their net rating increase versus top 100 opponents. This is also luck adjusted, so 3-point stuff is evened out a little bit. They're plus 12.4 when he's out there. They are definitely a better team. No surprise to anybody that's watched them. But also, I mentioned hookups earlier. Rob Wright to Richie Saunders was number 10 in the country for that. It's a big source of their offense, him running off screens, spacing the floor out. He's a great shooter off movement, catch and shoot off offensive rebounds, some of the stuff that Keba Keita is able to dig out. And they lose that now. Dawson Baker's already out for the year. I'm really concerned about BYU. I love Devanza. I love Wright, but those guys are going to have to take it to an even higher level for them to even, to me, like even to make a Sweet 16 at this point, because no Saunders is just going to be a killer.
I think they're an obvious underdog to make the Sweet 16. So you look at what Evan Miyakawa tweeted yesterday, which is that they fall from, I think it's 22nd to 45th when Saunders is removed in his rankings. I don't know that I am firmly there, and we will tell you how it goes later. That game is tonight, right? Arizona BYU?
No, it's Wednesday. It's Wednesday.
Okay, great. Well, you'll find out Thursday or Wednesday. Who knows? Days are relative. But with BYU, you will find out how real that is to me if Arizona wins that game by 20 plus. If BYU is essentially non-competitive, and it's already a hard game, so some amount of grace will be afforded, but if it's obvious within like the first 10 minutes BYU doesn't have answers, that's really concerning long-term to me. And in a vacuum, there's no shame in losing at Arizona by any scoring margin. But given the season they've had where they don't really have a marquee win, they're 0-5 in Q&A games. They had what I would call the perfect setup a couple of weeks back when they drew Arizona at home and couldn't pull the game off. Like that to me was the game you needed to win to kind of prove yourself, and they couldn't do it. And you know, you look at the last 10 games, and again, small sample, but 177th in the nation in defensive efficiency over their last 10. Some of that is driven by some really unlucky 3-point percentages on the defense, 38%. But this is a team that doesn't force turnovers, doesn't protect the rim well, and is extremely one-on-one reliant on offense. They set up like perhaps a little too well to me to be this year's, and I don't really know where they're at seating wise. It kind of seems like 5 or a 6 for now. I'm going to wager, to be honest, that falls to a 7 by Selection Sunday if the Saunders drop off is accurate. That tracks to me a lot like a team that can probably escape a first round game, but could get blown off the map in the round of 32.
Yep, I'm with you there. And you're talking about what if they lose by 20 to Arizona? I mean, they got down by 20 with Richie Saunders at home.
Yeah.
It was a 19-point deficit. They had to come back. They have been a second half rally type of team all year, which is a little surprising given their lack of depth. But that's usually when Devanza takes it up an extra level and just starts dominating one-on-one. But man, he's going to have to do that more consistently without Saunders as kind of the bailout 3-point option, space in the court. And Saunders played really well against Arizona in that first game before fouling out. So I want to see it as well. It's probably not fun for them that they get Arizona off 2 losses back home. That's not fun, but I do fear for BYU's status going forward. All right.
Let me hit you I'll hit you with a comp here. Do you remember 2013, 2014 Oregon? 7 seed, lost to Wisconsin in the round of 32. Played them pretty well.
Okay. Yes. Was that like Joseph Young?
Joseph Young, Jason Caliste, I don't recall. Elgin Cook, Damian Dotson, all those guys. Started out 13-0 and were like tracking for like top 2 seed, and then went on a brutal run in the middle of conference play. Lost, I think it was 8 of 11 or something like that. Did recover, and funny enough, played BYU in the round of 64. That team tracks to me because they were so bad defensively, but they had such star power in offense, they could just simply outscore you. I think that is, for better or for worse, going to be BYU's path forward, is essentially turning every game into a race to 85. If you can win the race to 85, then you're going to have a real chance. Like, let's say that they, I don't have everything in front of me, but we'll say like in the round of 64, for example, they're going to draw a 10 seed who is like okay offensively. Let's go with, sure, SMU. That sounds about right to me. We'll get an acronym game. You get that, and we'll say BYU wins it. But in the round of 32, you get Purdue. You're not winning the race to 80 against Purdue.
No. I mean, Debanza might score 40 against that defense, but the team's
that
going to
could
give
be an
up.
all-time like Chris Paul cuts the lead to 40 game.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see, man. I think BYU has a couple questions to answer, and I don't know if the Big 12 is going to be where they're able to figure it out. So, all right, Will, back to you for your number 5 stat.
55. This is, as of today, the number of teams with a positive wins above bubble, per our friend Chris Gallo's WAB Watch, a great site to track daily results. I'm going to read off 36 through 55 to you because 45th is generally considered to be the cutoff line for wins above bubble for getting in versus staying out. So this is 36 through 55 as of today using Torvik's team sheet ranks. Auburn, Iowa, SMU, Indiana, Santa Clara, that's 36 through 40, UCLA, Texas, San Diego State, TCU, Texas A&M, that's 45th, Missouri, Georgia, Ohio State, New Mexico, VCU. And then this is where it gets fun. Here's your 51 through 55. Virginia Tech, Cal, Liberty, Seton Hall, and Belmont. Pick 10 teams from this list that will get in the NCAA tournament.
And 10 that will miss. Yeah.
So obviously I'm going to say that one of Liberty or Belmont probably lose their conference tournament and don't make it. So that's an instant elimination because while I would love to believe otherwise, I'm going to assume that even by winning out, those teams aren't at large capable.
Yeah, I think sad but true. VCU probably doesn't get in unless they win at SLU on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're going to need that kind of positive needle mover. I'm not terribly optimistic about Cal or Seton Hall. Seton Hall just doesn't have opportunities.
Seton Hall
in the
seems
Big East.
done.
Yeah, they have to beat at least one of UConn or St. John's, and they might need both. And then, you have to figure out like the Mountain West. Is both New Mexico and San Diego State getting in? I'm not sure. Santa Clara, do they survive having the worst loss on the entire bubble? Now that they've been swept by Gonzaga, I think they need the St. Mary's win down the stretch. TCU is one that I'm like having a real hard time with. The profile is so all over the place with the Q4 loss, the Q3 loss, but 5 Q1 wins. Like that's probably a team that I think sneaks in just because the upper end quality, and typically I think the committee gravitates to it. But there is a lot of it's like a Rorschach test with those 20 teams that you're discussing.
Here's my best guess. Here's my 10 picks. Auburn, I'm pretty sure, is going to get in. I understand the win-loss thing, but we do have this type of team every year that has a win-loss that's not great, but the schedule they've played is so brutal that it's largely okay. Plus, they have a couple of really great wins.
Yeah,
Iowa's going to be fine.
Literally number 1 in the country strength of schedule. So
Iowa's going to be fine. Indiana's going to be in. I think SMU will be across the finish line. Santa Clara, I will go yes. UCLA, I will go yes. I'm going to go yes on Texas and San Diego State. So I'm 8 for 8 here. Skip TCU. I don't think that they're going to end up doing it. I think they're going to have their luck's going to run out. The other two that I feel will get across the finish line, strangely, are Texas A&M and New Mexico. I think that the Mountain West simply lends itself to win accumulation, which is really big for wins above bubble. And A&M, for better, for worse, does have enough opportunities left and does have the team quality they feel very first four to me.
Yeah.
Kind of like that first year Chris Jan's team where it was like, like this team's not like great, but they're fine and they have enough wins and well, they're going to play somebody. So you can kind of feel like the Texas A&M New Mexico first 4 game incoming.
Yep. I think, I'm looking at Bart Torvik's tourney cast, which is forward projecting based on team quality as well. He's got Texas A&M at 92% almost to make the tournament, getting at large. So that would obviously be big time for them. First year for Bucky. Wow. I didn't, especially with Mbako going down. But yeah, they've got kind of the volatility, and they haven't forced turnovers lately the way they did most of the season. I don't know if teams are sort of solving their pressure, but Bucky's smart. He'll adapt, and they've got enough versatility, I think, to figure it out.
Let me give you one team outside of this that has the capacity to make it. They would have to go, I would think, at least 4-2 and probably 5-1 to do it. West Virginia intrigues me for this.
Yep.
West Virginia intrigues me. So they got so they have two obvious have to win thems. Actually, we'll say three. We'll count Kansas State on the road as a have to get it. And then out of the remaining three, at TCU, at Oklahoma State, home BYU, probably got to dig up two of those three. Doesn't really matter which two, but you got to find two. If they can finish 5-1, I think they're in.
Yeah, and as you're kind of alluding to there, they've only got one game against the top six, and it's BYU at home, a team that just lost a key starter. Every one of those games is very winnable, and I've seen some kind of groundswell with a couple West Virginia accounts that I follow of like, I think we could do this. We're sixth in the league right now. We swept UCF, or maybe not swept UCF. They beat them once. But like they've kind of put a stealth resume together off the radar. Now, they didn't do much in the non-conference at all. I think their best win is Pitt at home, but you can build enough in the Big 12, and if they win enough games down the stretch and are sitting at like 21-10, that's what they would be if they went 5-1. Yeah, I think that team gets in.
I mean, the TCU team from 2 years ago, I believe, or was it 3 years ago, that lost to Northwestern State in the non-con, played an atrocious non-conference slate. I think it was bottom 10 in the nation, and still ended up a 9 seed just because of how good the Big 12 was and how many good wins they accumulated.
Yep,
like, it's totally plausible to have a dog shit non-conference performance and be fine because you won a lot of games in what I think we'll call, weighted for the top group anyway, the best league in the nation.
Yep. I'm on board. All right, I'm going to go to another team that is above that vicinity that you're talking about, wins above bubble, and I don't think this was expected recently. But the numbers for them are 18th and 13th, and those are the two-way rebounding rates per KenPom for Miami, Florida. The only other three teams in the top 20 in both are Florida, Michigan State, and Arizona. I think that's universally regarded as the three best rebounding teams in the country. And then it's Miami. And they might be the fourth best rebounding team. Like St. Mary's, Illinois, Duke are all competing there, and Miami's schedule certainly helps them amp up their rebounding numbers. But they're on a tear. They're now 20-5 overall, and they're 30th in wins above bubble. Like, this team is comfortably in the tournament right now. And they survived True Washington being, I don't know if it was like ghost suspended or something, but he came back and they get that huge win at NC State. And for all the chatter about one Miami of Ohio, Miami, Florida is ahead of them and wins above bubble. Will, I found that shocking. Miami, the Hurricanes are 30th. The Redhawks are 34th. They've accumulated a bunch of wins lately that have moved the needle upwards. And it seems like Jay Lucas and co are going to make the tournament in his first year.
Is this the best collective year for Miami's? Just across, so excluding the Dolphins, who are quite bad, but Inter Miami won the MLS Cup. Miami of Ohio, 25-0 now, 26-0.
25-0 as of our recording. They've got a Willstradamous game at UMass tonight that we're going to hear about.
Miami, Florida, national champion runner-ups in college football. And then Miami, Florida basketball, 20-5. This is a remarkable run for all Miamis, it seems. Miami, I will shout out, Miami women's basketball, I believe, is number 1 in the MAC as well. So good for them.
Hey, there we go.
Pretty good power across the board. I don't want to call it just yet, but I believe if Miami, Florida beat Virginia Tech tonight, that would more or less, to me, perma-lock them into the field regardless of what happens the rest of the way. The only holdup there would be like if they lost to Boston College at home, that would shake my faith a little bit. But let's say, I mean, if they go 2-4 the rest of the way, they're in. That's an amazing accomplishment in year one. Super powerful on the boards, exceptionally good in the front court in general. 59% from 2 this year. You can kind of tell what team they are based on the fact that they're 332nd in 3-point attempt rate and 337th in free throw percentage. Very much play through the bigs, but even so, and even with a fairly light strength of schedule, we'll call it, uh, they've achieved everything you possibly could have wanted to achieve in year one under Jay Lucas. This is a really good team that, against NC State on the road, the comeback is one thing to me, but completely owning NC State on the interior and on the boards prior to the comeback is pretty nuts. Like, that was not a thing I would have anticipated 3 months ago.
Yep.
I look forward to seeing what they can do in March. I don't know that they have a massive amount of upside, but I have said that before about previous Miami teams, such as the 10 seed that made the Elite Eight. So I'm willing to be very wrong here. I mean, they, almost regardless of who they draw in a 7-10 or 8-9 game, could very well have the two best offensive players on the court in Malik Reneau and Trey Donaldson. And that's no slight to Shelton Henderson either, who's been really good, but doesn't quite have the numbers those two guys have. I really enjoy watching them play. It's refreshing.
Yeah, they went 3 of 17 from 3 and got a road win at a very likely NCAA tournament team in NC State.
The problem I had with Larinaga Miami teams was that they would vibe in and out of games, and it was just like the whole thing with them being like the first NIL team, it did kind of feel real in a way, especially the 5 seed that made the Final Four. It was like they just took games off because they felt like it. When you watch this Miami team, it feels like they are truly putting it all in the line every night. I love that. That's what I want to see from a team that is overachieving relative to preseason expectations. And, I would say generally was not expected to make the tournament this year.
Yeah, I they had some optimism with the roster build, but they've done a great job maximizing it. And just a mini shout out to Ernest Uday, one of the few P5 starters that takes less than 10% of the shots when he's on the court, but he's one of the best two-way rebounders in the country, and just such as Matt Cox calls him, a know your role all-star. He's going to go do what he's supposed to do and not play outside of himself. Okay, that's number 5 for me. Back to you for number 6.
Plus 10.4%. And this is Nebraska's 3-point percentage delta over their last 10 games. This is the 4th highest of any high major team in the sport. This is not to admonish them for it, because they've still gone 7-3. But that would explain why they're sustaining their early season goods, despite not doing terribly well on the boards as of late. They're barely above water in 2-point percentage over their last 10 games. But it would also explain why you're perhaps seeing a bit of a reduction in performance recently. They're not really controlling the games like they did early on. They are next to last in the entire country over their last 10 games in free throw rate, 364th, 333rd in offensive rebounding percentage, 285th in opponent 2-point percentage. But they are 7-3 despite this, because they've shot 40% from 3 and their opponents have shot 29%. We'll also note they've shot 79% from the free throw line, while opponents have shot 67%. That's how you survive and advance, and that's totally fine. They've got their own way to do it. They have managed to get through a pretty ugly start against Northwestern. Kind of the same with Rutgers. Scuffed about with Rutgers for a while, which was a weird game. Did the same at Minnesota. But I do worry about this going forward a little bit, because it's been such a fun story. And while they are still very good at, two-way turnover rate and still very fun to watch, don't get me wrong, the offense has regressed from its early season accomplishments. And the defense seems to be running a bit on shooting luck and fumes, I would say. I don't think it's like total smoke and mirrors by any stretch of the imagination, but it doesn't feel like what it once was to me. I feel, and we're going to see with how this Iowa game goes, how real or not that is, but they have that remaining, the California swing remaining at USC and at UCLA in a 72-hour span here in about, I think, 2 weeks. How do you feel about Nebraska heading into this final stretch?
Not awesome. I think they are a delight to watch because of the ball movement and the unselfishness, and it's why they're like top 10 in assist rate and 3-point attempt rate. It's beautiful in offense. It's kind of like, to be honest, like a Ivy offense or a SoCon offense. Like, they're not winning with physicality on the boards or getting to the line. It's just skill level, not turning it over. Like, I was trying to find a good comp, and it's like 2022 Princeton was top 10 in both turnover rate and effective field goal percentage, but outside the top 330 in rebound rate and free throw rate. That's I think more aesthetically beautiful than it is hyper sustainable come a March Madness game. Their defense allows so many threes that I think they're prone to getting lit up from deep. I think they're going to get their first win in the NCAA tournament, program win. I'm excited about that. I don't know if it gets much past the Sweet 16, which for what they thought at the beginning of the year is probably great, but I'm not buying the defense at the level that it's at right now, top 10 in the entire country per KenPom.
So the rough equivalent, if you bake in just a tad of 3-point percentage regression, not a ton, but just a tad, is that they would have about a 55% shot to make their first Sweet 16. Would you take the over or under on that?
Let's see. They're looking at bracket matrix. They're sitting at a 3 seed. I'm gonna take the under. I think the chances of them facing a really good 6. I mean, like if they face SLU in the second round, St. Louis is projected a 6 seed. That scares me. Louisville's 3-point offense scares me a little bit. They're 6. It's going to come down to matchups for them, but I'll say it's more of a 50-50 coin flip than 55%.
Yeah, I don't feel terrific about it. There's some teams, dating myself a bit here, that they remind me of, like the Doug McDermott 3 seed that lost to Baylor in the round of 32. Is that right?
I think that's right.
So there's a little bit of that, which I don't love. Like there's some Evan Turner-ish to them, Ohio State, stat-wise. There's just like, even Wisconsin last year, they remind me a little bit of that. So I want to see them. I don't want them to go all in on offensive rebounding or anything. You make trade-offs as you make trade-offs, but the rim protection needs to be better for me to feel good about them heading into March, because lately it has not been at the level it was a month ago.
Yeah. For like you said, they're barely in the positives in league play and 2-point percentage. Like they're almost dead even there, and part of that's by design. You know, they're playing really compact and they're trying to force longer twos. But if you get to the rim, you can score against them, and that's concerning. All right, my number 6 number here. 44th. This is a small sample Bart Torvik filter again, but it's mostly because I just want to point at a team and say, hey, they are not playing as well as I thought they would. That is Virginia's ranking since January 24th. It is close to 4 weeks of sample, and they've only lost a game, a single one in that span. But they're playing bad teams in the ACC, and they're beating them unconvincingly. And then even just this performance against Ohio State over the weekend, I thought maybe they were sleepwalking against bad competition, but now they go out of conference, neutral site game, Big Ten, potential NCAA tournament team. We see Virginia really ramp it up again. And they got Ohio State without John Mobley, and they still needed a big late run to win that game. Like they were not getting stops for most of that game until the final 8 or so minutes. It just wasn't the performance I wanted to see from Virginia, and they were a metrics darling for a while, and they have really fallen out of that. And I'm curious where you stand on them at this point. I still love the roster build. It still makes a ton of sense to me in terms of offensive skill level around some big centers that can control the glass and the rim. But there's just, I don't know if there's something missing with them, an extra level of athleticism or pro level talent or pop that isn't quite there.
I kind of wondered if they've already played their best basketball. And it's not going to look on face value like they're going to have this huge regression down the stretch. But at some point, like you need to just show, and we're saying all this about a 22-3 team, by the way. They're obviously still really good, but plus 6% from 3, you can't enjoy forever. They have been a very good rim protection team, which is nice, but like the shooting is not quite at the level I thought it would be. I thought it'd be a little bit better this year. And they just seem addicted to playing with their food. And what they remind me a lot of are some of the Georgetown teams of the early 2010s that would do the same thing. Get in Big East play and they'd scrap around with the dregs of the Big East, and then it would get to March. And they're like, well, now it's March. They're going to turn it back on. And it's like, well, no shit. Georgetown just lost by 15 in the round of 32. I have a bad feeling that we're going to have a similar experience with this UVA team, which, to be clear, if they lost in the round of 32, this season would be a massive success. There's like nothing whatsoever wrong with the job Ryan Odom's done, with where they've made it to, but I do think that their best basketball is behind them. You look at their last 10 games, they're 61st in offensive efficiency, which is quite ugly. Not really doing much to thrill you in terms of like offensive play in general. Like they get a lot of offensive rebounds, and that's about it. Like you don't want to be mean, but if you wanted to call this like Tennessee with better SEO, you could.
It's not bad, and I kind of like that Georgetown comparison. Teams that were solid two-way and got some really good seeds, but after John Thompson III went to the Final Four in 2007, they got a 2 or a 3 seed 4 times, actually a 2, 3, or 4 seed 5 times, and never made a Sweet 16 again. Like they were pretty upset prone. I mean, they played slow. It was a super system-based offense with some of those Princeton concepts, but I could see some of Virginia's lackadaisical play and not being able to turn it back up to the level that they had early in the season when they were going on the road and smacking Texas, going on the road and smacking NC State. We haven't seen that for a while, and sometimes you can't recreate it. So I think this is a team worth monitoring that I loved early on, and I've kind of sort of fallen out of love with.
If you had to pick based on, so I don't think that there's, and this will be part of my final point, team on the 4 line, because I don't think anybody 14 through 16 is going to even get close this year based on how the field's setting up. Team on the 4 line that could lose in the round of 64 of our current options will go, let's just take bottom 3 and top 5 as well to give you a better group here. Gonzaga, Texas Tech, Michigan State, Vandy, Virginia, Alabama. Would you pick UVA as the most likely to potentially lose to a 13?
Yeah, Alabama's spotty, but they typically have taken care of by-game competition, and Oates' style hasn't been super prone to upset. They really ramp up the possession sample size. Yeah, I think it's probably UVA to me. There's some Michigan State concern in there. We've already expressed that on this pod, but them or even I guess maybe Vandy too. But again, they're fast and maximize possession. So it's probably Virginia for me. Who would it be for you?
It would be Virginia for me. I think Alabama would probably be number 2 on the upset chart. Gonzaga and Texas Tech would easily be lowest.
Yeah. Even though Gonzaga is like the one team that lost as a 20-point favorite and went down.
They got it out of the way, baby. They're good.
Yes, right. Okay, so your final number, Will?
Final number. 2025, 2025, 2019, 2017, and 2000. This is for a piece that will be out when you're listening to this. The 4 NCAA tournaments, statistically, with z-scores and all that good stuff that I definitely remembered from Stats 119 or whatever it was at UT. The 4 NCAA tournaments that show the most similarity to 2026, based on the numbers as of this week. Really interesting to me because those 4 tournaments collectively, can you name how many 13 through 16 seeds won a game?
I don't think we had any last year. So in 5 tournaments, it's 20 of those teams. I'll say 2.
1.
Oof.
And it was 2019. Oof. You'll recall this, UC Irvine over Dean Wade-less Kansas State.
Oh, okay.
It's the only one. So I have a big piece that will be out by the time you're listening to this about what the tournament field is setting up to be like. Based on the most similar years, I think that we are going to need to prep for, I hate saying this, a boring round of 64. I'm not seeing much that would show much from the 13 through 16 seed lines or from like a lack of star power in the 1 through 4s. The 4 most similar years collectively averaged about 3 upsets in the round of 64, almost all from the 11 and 12 lines, which does make sense to me. I think that if I had to guess, we'll probably get 1 12 over 5, maybe a couple 11 over 6s, because that's the hot one now. But the good news about this, the numbers show strong similarities to years with fairly chaotic round of 32s. 2025, a major outlier in this regard in how few 1s and 2s lost. The years that are most similar here, 2017, 2000, even 2005 a bit, lots of 1s and 2s losing in the round of 32, usually about 3 to 4 of those 8 per
Ooh,
year. So
wow.
we'll see if this ages well. But a month from now, my expectation is that we're going to have more upsets in the round of 32 than we do the round of 64, based on the numbers I'm seeing.
Okay, I'm intrigued by that. I mean, I think there's been, and myself included, talk about how strong the top of the field is. The 1 seeds, the 2 seeds, the efficiency margins are way, way up there relative to some other years. But I would not mind some of that second round chaos. See who potentially goes down. I have some financial incentive in rooting against Michigan. I don't think they're going to be the team that loses. Unfortunately, they seem super duper high floor. But I like this, Will. I think I had been under the impression we were going to be super chalky both of the first 2 rounds, and I'm intrigued to read this new piece and see about the potential chaos in the second round.
I think it would just be good for the sport to have, because last year, the big moment really was Colorado State losing on the final play to Maryland. That was your big moment of the round of 32, and that was a huge bummer. I do think that this year we definitely have a better chance of a mid-major making the Sweet 16, whether it's Utah State or St. Louis or whatever. But the key for me is all of these years showing, like, and especially with the commonalities between this year's numbers and the minus 2025, the ones listed, the gaps do shrink the deeper you go. And I think that there's a big gap from 1 to 10 to everybody else. But even in those years where there's been the big gap, you've still had a couple of upsets. Like 2017, I think of South Carolina beating Duke, Michigan beating Louisville. 2015, I believe Virginia lost to Michigan State in the round of 32. Wichita State definitely beat Kansas. We had one more on the 1 to 8 lines that I'm not recalling. Louisville? No.
I can't remember.
Villanova.
I'm looking at it right now.
Villanova. Because of the
Oh, to
crying,
Wisconsin
the
or to NC
crying
State.
saxophonist,
Wow.
trombonist, whatever it was.
I don't remember the saxophonist, but yeah, this torn, or not even torn Dorn, this NC State team. Yeah, what
Mhm.
a shocking upset there.
Yes. So those years showing strong similarity, and 2000 is a hell of a comp because you'll remember you mentioned Wisconsin earlier, and I held off on this. They made the Final Four. So did another 8 seed. That was a wacky Final Four turn. I think it was a 1, a 5, an 8, and an 8. So I don't think that will get to that level this year, but that is an educational tournament to me because that year was the nightmare scenario. We had one upset, an 11 seed Pepperdine beating Indiana, of all things, and nothing else happened in the round of 64. It looked awful, and then the round of 32 happened, had 4 upsets. I feel like we're gonna start aging into that type of tournament going forward. Perhaps
Okay, I
it's
think
like
people would be, I think people would be on board with that. Like a little bit more of chaos in that opening weekend.
it won't be great for casuals who are like, oh, I think like this is. It's not going to be great for the. It's not going to be great for our guy Seth Davis, who is addicted to picking 13 over 4s and 12s over 5s on the selection show.
Yeah.
But it's going to be great for people who want to see like better, more competitive games in the round of 32 and onward.
Man, I'm just looking back at that. St. John's was a 2 seed and they finished 29th at Ken Palm.
Mm-hmm.
That's so wild. I feel like we've grown out of that in a good way where we at least know who the really good teams are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, my final number, it's a team we touched on a little bit, so we don't have to go too deep on them, but it's plus 1.4, and that is the WAB accumulated by TCU in their last 3 games. It's top 10 in the country. They barely survived K-State to start that 3-game stretch, and that could have been like a nail in the coffin type of loss if they weren't able to pull that out at home. But they escape, then they beat Iowa State. They go on the road and win at Oklahoma State in a major bubble battle, and suddenly their at-large candidacy has life again. It's kind of been ugly. The Iowa State game was a slop fest. I watched most of it, and it was hideous. But I do enjoy the front court duo of the just 245-pound, 6'7", 6'8" guys, Xavier Edmonds, David Punch, just a physical, brutal battle when you're against them. To go with 2 smaller jitterbug-type guards in Pierre and Brock Harding. It's an odd sort of construction for Jamie Dixon. Usually he's got some bigger guards, a little more physicality in the backcourt. But they've figured it out since that season opening loss to New Orleans. I mean, they could have the at Kansas win on their resume. We talked about that a little bit earlier in this episode. they've shown very high highs and low lows, but it's kind of remarkable. Them, and as we mentioned, West Virginia, both potentially going to make the tournament from the Big 12.
If you only watch this team play quad one games, you would think they were a 6 seed.
Yeah.
You would be like, why are they having this discussion? Well, the rest of the schedule happened. But they intrigue me a lot as like we've talked about, making reference to previous tournaments setting up for a round of 32 chaos. TCU strikes me as a perfect team for that. Like, if you get into the tournament where they're going to be at, like an 11 seed or a 10 or whatever, you are only playing top 50 teams. Could TCU be this year's surprise Sweet 16 entrant?
I think their fans would kiss the ground. It would be their first Sweet 16 since 2000. Nope, that's
Since
not
ever?
even right. It might be ever. Yeah, in the Ken Palm era, they've never made a Sweet 16. So
Let's take a quick. I'm sure, like when, probably in pre-internet days. Okay, so they made an Elite Eight in 1968, but that was also in the tournament. I think was 16 teams. So I don't think they've ever won 2 games in the NCAA tournament.
It's about time. Let's get it, Horned Frogs. David Punch, build a statue of David Punch on campus. And it's funny because there's been like Jamie Dixon whispers because they started so slow, but there's a chance they could still make the kind of run that entrenches him in his alma mater forever. All right, that is it for our 7-stat rotation. We've got to get a quick Willstradamous segment in here. Will referenced it earlier in the episode, but I have to run and catch a flight pretty much immediately after we stop recording. So we'll hit these quick, Will. Some of the big games, we've got Michigan at Purdue, Nebraska at Iowa, Louisville at SMU if you care, and then, of course, your beloved Miami of Ohio Redhawks have a tough road test at UMass, the team that almost beat them in Miami. What's jumping out to you? What does the crystal ball tell you?
Running through a list of results here. I'm just going top down on the Torvik thrill quotient. Is that what it's called? That's a fun thing. It's almost more fun than fan match, but way harder to explain. Purdue's going to hold down a home court. I feel okay about that. The Michigan's done quite well in these big road games. I think that's going to be extremely fun the whole way. Love that it's at 6:30 on Peacock. Everybody was begging for more streaming service games for the biggest games of the year. Look, if SMU beats a top 50 team and I'm wrong about it, so be it. I've got Louisville on the road. SMU, just do your job for once. Jesus. I've got Iowa at home. Ben McCollum, addicted to not winning these big games, but I swear he's got it in him. I know that man can win a big game, and they're overdue. I think they can get it done. Let me put a pin on Wisconsin, Ohio State. Got to think about that one. NC State takes care of business at home. I worry a lot about North Carolina going forward, man. No Caleb Wilson really feels wobbly to me. We'll say Kentucky gets it done in a slot fest against Georgia, Texas Tech on the road, whatever. Scanning for results. Miami of Ohio. I don't love it, man. I think this is finally it. Unfortunately,
the buck stops here.
I think the buck stops here. I don't like saying it, but I pray to be wrong. A couple of bonus ones. VCU holds serve at home against George Washington in a deceptively important game for A-10 battles. And I'm going to come back to it, and I will, for better or for worse, pick Wisconsin to get it done on the road against Ohio State. I hate everything about this pick, and the smarter pick is Ohio State. But I'm just going with my gut feeling that Jake Diebler loves losing these games by 3 to 5 points.
Yeah,
loves it.
That sounds about right. And no Mobley. I think he's probably still out, so that one matters as well. All right, you heard it here first. We do not have an undefeated team left in the sport as you're listening to this on Wednesday morning. We'll see about that, but I think it is entirely possible. Okay, that is it for us here at Stats by Will and Jim. Well, any other messages for the people before we send them on their way?
One big one. Thank you, Isaac Trotter, for filling in last week. He did a great job. Deeper voice than me, therefore more listenable. 2, wanted to thank everybody for listening to the show. I didn't realize until this is real old man territory at age 32. I didn't know you could rate shows on Spotify, and I stumbled upon our page on there and saw that we have a 5-star rating, just straight 5 stars. That's awesome. Thank you to everybody who gives us ratings. I don't know what that does to the algorithm. I'm sure it makes it better, but rate and review. We love it. Just glad that people are listening to this.
Yeah, it's just two nerds going back and forth talking ball. That's what we love to do here. So yeah, thank you to the listeners. Shout out to Trilly Donovan as well, the purveyor of Basket Under Review, to Corey Aldis, our producer, Sam Freyer for our graphics, and of course, Home Field Apparel, our sponsor. Thank you everybody for tuning in. We'll be back again next week. Cheers and enjoy your week of basketball.